decisive action to fight COVID-19 in Colorado. Governor Polis isn't telling people what they want to hear, and I think it's about time. He wants paid sick time for teachers, restaurant and hotel workers, people in healthcare, so they don't lose pay for staying home when sick. That'll be expensive and complicated, and we need to do it fast. Let's look at how it could be done. And as Russia and Saudi Arabia fight, the impact might be felt the most in Weld County, Colorado. That's next. Colorado got a much-needed dose of truth today about the coming battle against COVID-19. In this state where we brag about 300 days of sunshine, which is not quite true, we have had plenty of it blown up our nether regions by people who hope that the coronavirus will not be widespread here. It will. Governor Polis came right out and said that today. More testing will soon reveal the scope of the situation, and the governor outlined a plan to fight it as he declared a state of emergency.
We fully anticipate that in the coming days, especially as we work hard to increase our testing capacity, that there will be more confirmed cases. And we're going to get through this together, but the actions that we take in the next few days and weeks will really determine the trajectory of coronavirus in Colorado. I've consulted extensively with public health officials and studied the response in other nations, what's worked and what hasn't worked, successful efforts to contain coronavirus like in Taiwan, and failures like in Italy.
Lo and behold, an approach that's based on science and research as opposed to hope. Polis is going to require that businesses pay sick leave for healthcare, hospitality, and school workers who currently don't have it, people who have to choose between going to work sick or getting paid. The governor announced the state's going to open a drive-through testing clinic this week, and he is pushing the federal government to send more test kits to Colorado. You heard Polis point to Taiwan. There's a nation where leaders took quick action. They stockpiled supplies. They convinced the public to participate in prevention and offered financial support to people who were quarantined or sick.
That's exactly why we're taking these forward-thinking actions now to reduce the likelihood of these incidents in the future. Our goal is not only to save lives, but it's also to prevent the sort of widespread disruption that we're seeing in China and Italy and other areas of the world. We have the benefit of learning from the experience of other countries that are a few weeks ahead of us in successfully handling the outbreak. The actions we're taking today, the targeted interventions, expanding our testing capacity, are aimed at using these lessons to avoid broader disruption to our state and our economy.
4 new COVID-19 cases today, including Jefferson County's first, brings Colorado's total to 16. That Jeffco case is a man in his 50s. He's currently in isolation getting medical care. Denver made a significant shift in its stance today. Mayor Michael Hancock, who yesterday was saying that the St. Patrick's Day Parade and other large gatherings were a go, the mayor announced the St. Patrick's Day Parade will not happen this weekend. Denver is also immediately halting air travel by city employees, and you can expect coming announcements about how citizens can access city services from home without coming into an office. So you mentioned that Governor Polis is requiring that hourly workers in food service, education, and hospitality get paid sick leave. That's a big shift. Our Steve Steger looks at how the governor can do by order what Democrats have tried and failed to do through legislation.
That was a little surprise that this has reached a level of elevation where the governor has to call state of emergency.
Though it comes perhaps as a bit less of a surprise to Ryan Fletter, owner of Chow Morso Downtown and Barolo Grill in Cherry Creek.
Today I've watched 12 emails come through about parties that we're canceling because they're not coming to the state of Colorado.
Fears of coronavirus have already impacted his business, and it's about to do it again.
We're going to send out the rules to a mass list of employers and trade associations and other groups.
Scott Moss is in charge of writing the new rule for some employers during this crisis. Employees who handle food, who work in schools or child care, who work in nursing homes, and who work in hotels and hospitality jobs, they will now be required to be paid temporary sick leave while they're waiting for coronavirus test results.
It's a rarely used power because we don't have a lot of situations like this. But when a situation like this arises, that's what these rules so many decades ago were written for and why they're in the statutes.
Fletter says it will impact his bottom line, much like the minimum wage hike and a list of other issues already have.
We're already really in a trash compactor of being able to keep our profits out there enough to afford our existence.
But he says at the end of the day, the hit is worth it. And he says this reinforces how all of us play a role in mitigating this outbreak.
A lot of this is put on the individual right now to make the best decision, to let the employer know that they aren't feeling well, and then to take the precautionaries.
Now, employers will only be required to pay that temporary sick time for as long as it takes to get those results, up to 4 days. Then if the employee is positive, they could apply for temporary unemployment insurance through the state. So this order will last as long as the governor's state of emergency declaration does, so it could be extended over and over again, depending on how long this goes.
And see, I mean, if we're being transparent here, people who follow politics know that Polis and other Democrats have wanted to do this for a long time, couldn't get it through the state legislature this year as paid sick leave for every worker in Colorado.
Certainly, and this is a much smaller scale of that, and it's only certain industries. Now, Scott Moss, who you heard from, was a large part of trying to get that paid family leave passed, but he says this is really an example of why they need it. But again, this is only temporary, and it's a small slice of the population of the workforce in Colorado.
Yep, Steve, yeah, that is one policy piece of the pie. Appreciate that. Let's talk about the overall tone. Governor Polis showed every other public official in America how it's done today. His emergency declaration for COVID-19 was clear, calm, focused on the science and what the research tells us we should be doing, not what we just wish would be the case. Polis's approach acknowledged the reality of the situation, knowing that sugarcoating things can actually cause harm. Polis focused on what is within our control, and he outlined those aggressive early steps beyond washing our hands and hoping. I was critical of his first public briefing on COVID-19, so it's only fair that I share my observation that today's announcement was competent, confident, and reassuring. Governor Polis has set a high standard. We intend to hold him to it, and you should too. Most importantly, Governor Polis is gently fighting the fiction that combating COVID-19 in Colorado can be done without serious inconvenience and impact. The governor is going to have to deliver more difficult news in the weeks ahead, and he proved today he's willing to do it. Any other time, any other day, America's plummeting stock market and the threat of recession would be a lead story on the news. We don't want to lose sight of the state of the economy. We know that businesses, small businesses especially, will be severely impacted by social distancing as more people stay home. Take what's going to happen in Denver with the cancellation of St. Patrick's Day parade. And then there's the global fight over oil that has the potential to slam Colorado's oil and gas industry. Our Marshall Zellinger looks at that.
The price of unleaded on the far east side of Greeley is $1.82 today. That's good news if you need to fill up your tank. Not so good news if you work in oil and gas.
When gas prices are low, it means typically that a barrel of oil is low. Depending on what the cost of a barrel of oil is, you could see people pulling back drilling schedules.
Dan Haley is the president of the Colorado Oil and Gas Association, which is watching from afar.
What's happening now is a battle between Russia and Saudi Arabia, knowing that their target is the United States.
There appears to be a fight halfway across the globe about oil production and oil price. Right now, too much production, too low of a price. It appears the oil and gas fields of Colorado may be impacted by a leader whose last name has 5 letters, starts with a P, but is not Governor Jared Polis.
I would much rather work with Governor Polis than Vladimir Putin on anything. And I think that Putin really wants to see the backs of this industry break. I'm going to bet on the men and women in this industry every day of the week.
60% of our assessed value is tied to oil and gas.
Weld County relies on the property taxes of oil and gas operations. In this year's budget, property taxes are bringing in more than $224 million to the county. 60% of that, the oil and gas property tax money, that's more than $130 million.
Pull out your tax bill and think about where you're paying taxes and look at that mill levy. That will be impacted by a drop in any property tax revenue. Water districts, fire districts, library districts. In some counties, it's hospital districts.
On the bright side, oil and gas was up today, I heard, so our 401ks are also better because of that, perhaps. Here's a good side to property tax valuation. It happens every other year, and so right now Weld County is good because this is based on last year's valuations, the money they've budgeted this year. The impact really won't hit until 2022 when, if this stays low on the price of oil, then the property tax valuations will be much less than they were now, but they won't feel that for 2 more years.
This could have a tremendous impact on school districts that rely on revenue from oil and gas, and on Weld County. I mean, how long do they have to diversify their economy? They say prior to this, with the state regulations, they were expecting a 3rd cut in property tax valuation already next year, or at least in production, a half in 2 years. At some point, Weld County is going to have to figure out how they can run business without having oil and gas there. But they don't have debt. They pay cash for everything. So they have the luxury of doing what the rest of the state does, is issue debt to pay for things in the future if they ever want to do that. All right. Thank you, Marshall.
It's an easy way to create a visual reminder of those we lost in the Aurora Theater shooting and to put it all over the state.
And as soon as we started telling people about it, we immediately started getting signups.
A new way to never forget. Next.
I'll admit we've been a little distracted from what's happening at our state capitol lately, but today a ban on flavored nicotine products cleared its first test. It passed out of committee and heads to the House. Democrats support it. They run the whole show at the Capitol. If that ban on flavored nicotine products becomes law, it would take effect in September. It would be a simple reminder of those we lost in the Aurora Theater shooting, and we would see it all over town. The group Aurora Rise hopes to turn some of our license plates into moving memorials. They made our Pitch 9 News photojournalist Corky Scholl.
We're out here today at the 720 Memorial Foundation Garden. It's a good place to come back and reflect on those that we've lost and those that are still struggling from their time in the shooting, and this place reminds me of all of them. Our organization is Aurora Rise. We work directly with the victims from the Aurora Theater shooting. We were founded right after the Aurora Theater shooting by a lot of people in the community who were directly affected, and we work with the victims, giving money directly back to them to help with issues stemming from the theater shooting. In that time, we've been looking forward to other projects that we can do. Last year, we started the Memorial Scholarships, and we did our first Alex Sullivan Memorial Scholarship. And then this year, we really wanted to push with the license plate. The license plate is going to be a chance for us to keep the memory of the victims going. It's going to be a chance to raise money to give back to victims in the future, and it's going to just be a chance to really make sure that we have another memorial for everybody that day. What we have right now for the design on the license plate is a design that hasn't been approved yet. But it is a design that has 13 stars on it for the people that we lost during the shootings. It also has a blue ribbon for victims' rights, and then it says "We Rise" on the blue ribbon there. And that's kind of been our motto since we've started this with Aurora Rise, is "We Rise." At the end of the day, we're all about reminding people of those that we lost that day and helping to empower those that survived through it.
Cool day, snow in the mountains, sunshine on the plains, and a beautiful day in Denver with temperatures in the 60s again, way above average. And that's a trend that will continue for most of this week. We're tracking a cutoff low off the coast of California, pumping all this moisture into the southwest and eventually into western Colorado. But it's a cool front to the north that's coming in. It's kicking up the wind in Wyoming, where high wind warning has been posted. Mountain snow showers will wind down tonight. The wind will ease as well. And out on the far eastern plains, a few showers around Sterling and Ray, Burlington. Those will be moving out. Clearing skies tonight, and then off to the west tomorrow we start to see that moisture coming in, and it'll be in the form of rain and snow west of the Continental Divide over Vail Pass and through Glenwood Springs. Denver is dry. A nice night tonight. Check out that big bright moon. It's past full but still glorious. 35 the low in the city tonight, with the high tomorrow close to 70. A cool front comes in Thursday. It's a little bit cooler with some snow for the mountains Thursday. Denver's got rain and snow showers. Not a big deal, but a colder day Friday. Weekend looks dry. Next storm, next chance for snow coming in Monday into Tuesday, and there's some cold air support with this early storm next week, so we'll be watching for some light accumulation here.
We're dealing with two kinds of contagions right now. One that is largely out of our hands, and one that we can really control at home, between our ears. That's next.
Most people who get COVID-19 are going to recover. Can't stress that enough, especially young people. So we have to assume that the prognosis is good for the teenage girl from Denver. The latest announced case came out just while we were on the air here talking. She is Colorado's 17th. I know you're sick of me talking about social distancing to slow the spread, but I keep saying it because scientists say that it works, and it appears that more organizations are now listening. Colorado College told students this afternoon they should expect to work from home through April 15th. And Colorado College is saying they might not come back at all this school year. We also have to be honest with ourselves about how we're feeling about the whole situation here. I mean, even if we know the numbers, we know that most people who get COVID-19 are going to be fine, it's natural to feel anxious, especially knowing the risk to vulnerable people in our community. And it can lead to what the experts call emotional contagion. You see that play out in the toilet paper aisle at the grocery store when it's picked clean. The emotional contagion is something that we can control.
There are many different ways we can empower ourselves. The first is information. So to me, as a physician and a scientist, information is one of the most empowering things out there. But you have to dissociate that information from the fear. Just because we're talking about it doesn't mean that it's going to cause the end of humanity. It doesn't mean that it's going to wipe out the way that we live our lives. The reason we're talking about it is because we're active participants in how it spreads. And the more informed that we get, the more we can influence the behavior of the virus. So I would say the first piece of it is information. The second piece of it is your emotional response to that information.
And Dr. Coley says this works both ways. Remember here we've talked about the fact that preparation is not panic. The calm that can come with preparation and by looking at the facts of a situation rather than just all the scary stuff, Dr. Coley says that positive factual information can spread just as fast as the negative. Well, whether it is nap time or dinner time, next, well, brings out some strong feelings in our viewers. That and your feedback next. The state says that Mesa County reported its results right on time last night, so far so good. The Republican elections clerk out there says that one of these days I'm probably going to get a note from management saying, you know, Next isn't doing very well with the dog audience. And to that I will say, not every dog. All right, I gotta be honest, it's not that Wigan and Aurora loves the show. No, Wigan's owner has just trained him that when the show comes on, he gets fed, and then they watch the show. So I don't know, maybe the dog's just excited for the food. I'll take it either way, you know what. Text feedback tonight from somebody who doesn't like the fact that I complimented Governor Polis's response to the COVID-19 emergency. Said, I'd bet $1 million if he was a Republican, you would say, we need to hold him to his word. Let me read you exactly what I said. Polis set a high standard. We intend to hold him to it, and you should too. Another text. Many thanks for your advice to prepare. I am a senior, and thanks to Next, I feel I am well prepared.